Hi guys, welcome to VALORANT News. The first two teams in the Americas officially locked into Masters Toronto in a mega result last night to get them over the line. EMEA and Sentinels, they are the two teams that will be joining the two Chinese teams so far that have also qualified for the tournament in Toronto, guaranteed. G2 versus Sentinels, expected to be a banger series, that it was, but after G2's dominance of the Americas so far, that came to an end last night in very important fashion indeed. 100T awaits G2 in the losers bracket. That might be rather challenging for them. The bracket though is shaping up to be very spicy indeed. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comment section below. How do we get to this point? Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. We're going to start here just quickly on the EMEA side because, of course, it's been a disaster over there. And Soul Chain's put together the numbers for how many tech pauses they have had in Europe over the last few weeks. And the crazy thing is that it just gets worse and worse, right? So anyway, on the first weekends, there was only, and I say only, 18 minutes of total tech pause time. Wow, what a result, right? So, these are the calculations across the different things. But in the second week, there were 35 minutes of tech pause times. In the third week, it was 1 hour 10. In the fourth week, it was 1 hour 45. And then, of course, it came to 3 hours 11 with, of course, getting capped off by that remarkable Carmine Core Liquid series, which I can't even call a real, like, what were we talking about at this point? Now, he actually did some analysis on this. And, of course, KC overall, especially given that final one, spent the longest time on pauses. They had the highest number of pauses. They had the most pauses in a single game basically during yesterday's match. So these were the overall numbers for the different teams, bringing the total tech time for EMEA Stage 1 up to 7 hours of gameplay. I mean, look, there's plenty of matches played, but what's like an acceptable number of tech pause time over an entire stage? Okay, there's loads of games over the different groups. Maybe, let's say, every other series might have a 5-minute tech pause. That might be, so if you add that up, maybe like 1 hour of tech pause time total is like over the entire stage is possibly acceptable. I don't know what you guys think. If you're watching a normal esports, that might be kind of what you might expect. But no, we had 7 times that, and KC had 16 pauses, Liquid had 12. I mean, Gen.G Heretics only suffered a couple, and but even then, as I say, so 2 for Gen.G, 2 for Team Heretics, roughly 5-minute pauses each. That should be what it is, right? Like, if you're a team, you're going to play an entire stint. Yeah, okay, maybe you have a couple of tech pauses during a stint and they last 5 minutes each. Then it gets resolved and we get back on with the game. These should be the numbers for like every team, right? Like, tech pauses are going to happen. It is what it is. But 4 hours of tech pauses for one team, like, oh my god, what an absolute disaster. Let's talk about the Pacific, because EMEA, like, obviously we're going to talk about who's qualified for Bangkok today. I don't know if those European boys are ever going to get there because they might not even get to the playoffs with the way that it's going as of late. But DRX played T1. This is a banger series, but T1 go down, and it's a big talking point right now because T1 started their stint pretty well. Could they maintain what happened in Bangkok? Look, I think T1, as much as I love that team and I was really impressed by them at the start of the season, I thought that they were going to do well at Bangkok, and of course, that they did. Maintaining your place on top, maintaining that consistency is always more of a challenge than getting there in the first place. And because T1 weren't the force they needed to be, frankly, during the regular stage, then they found themselves in a difficult bracket and they've gone down to DRX. So mega game, right? I mean, DRX T1, it's always an exciting series between these two Korean teams, and both of these games were bangers. The DRX 15-13 on the Lotus to win the first map of the series. The Fracture was then 14-12. So gutting to lose 2 overtimes in that way if you're T1, but at least they were very, very competitive. Mako had a great series, of course, on the DRX side. They get the win. They advance on into the second round. The other game, which may have concluded as I'm recording this, yes, indeed it has, was Gen.G. Now, Boom Esports have been so impressive this stage, but Gen.G absolutely dismantles them here in this series. And I think, for Boom Esports, right, they were so impressive. Every team has been saying, okay, hang on a second, right, Boom Esports, where have these guys come from? Are they going to be able to replicate that kind of performance? The other teams, I'm sure, have been watching VOD, trying to prepare for this particular matchup. And, maybe that's now what we're starting to see, right? So Boom Esports, yeah, they didn't play their best stuff in this series, but Gen.G, I mean, an absolutely crushing. I mean, look at this on Ascent, right? 12-0 defensive side. They then win the next 6 rounds back the other way before Gen.G eventually closing out. Like, that is, I mean, it was Boom Esports' pick. They didn't win a round on their attack. That's pretty tough. So Gen.G locking in when it comes to playoffs time, and they've done it. They've qualified for Masters Toronto as a result of this series right now. So yeah, let me hit the refresh on this. The upper final team is going to be Gen.G. Boom Esports dropped down to losers to play the winner of T1 or Paper X. So, I mean, yeah, for Boom Esports, it's tough, right? Didn't play a great series here against Gen.G, but Gen.G tend to deliver when it matters in these moments, and they've made it now to Toronto, and it's T1 Paper X. I mean, that's a banger game a few days away anyway, and then the winner of that plays Boom. I mean, Boom have to think about who they're going to prepare against. It's going to be pretty crazy. This is then the other qualification series just underway. DRX currently up 8-5 against RRQ, so like DRX are going to be the favourites to close out from here. We'll see if they can manage it, and if they do, it'll be DRX and Gen.G appearing in Toronto, and that's certainly a talking point when it comes to Sentinels we'll get to here in a few minutes time. Pretty much, let's just start right about now. So the Americas was pretty crazy yesterday. 2 massive series to determine the qualification teams over there. Just to quickly mention before we get there, in China, these are the 2 teams that have made it. So Wolves and G-Li Gaming, those are the 2 teams from China that are going to be there. Edward and Trace Esports, those were the 2 representatives in Bangkok, of course. They are not there yet. Although Edward, of course, are going to be the favourites to beat Bilibili Gaming and qualify in the end regardless. But there were some big kind of talking points yesterday too. The rumour is anyway that Loud are going to make some serious changes, that Vinny is going to go, Toys is going to go, and they are going to consider their options from there. Whether they keep the rest of the team, who they get rid of, you know, we'll see what Loud decide to do. But that's the big rumour anyway of yesterday, because it's not like the Brazilian team doesn't have talent. And I'm so impressed by what Aspas and this entire team has been able to do. This was a hilarious moment last night. So Verno hit a real nice clutch, and then Artzan's dad came on and said, like, does anyone have FNS's, you know, basically like PayPal or Venmo or whatever you want to say? And was like, yeah, I need to send this guy a few quid for effectively, well, not trying to ruin Verno's stock, but allowing Verno to go, and then he's been able to join EMEA and has taken them to the next level, right? So, yeah, crazy stuff. I think you can see why, in hindsight, Bonkar on the NRG team was seemingly so adamant that getting rid of Verno was not a good idea, that Bonkar was willing to, like, stake his career, stake his job on the line to defend Verno. They got rid of Verno anyway, and, well, we can see how both of those 2 teams are placed. Crew Esports, I mean, it's the classic for Crew, isn't it, right? As soon as you expect anything from the team, they lose. But MIBR crushed them. I mean, Aspas and Verno, Cortesia, you know, they combined for an incredible performance here. And the fact that this Verno MIBR move has worked is actually so interesting. Like, when it was confirmed, we were like, wow, that's kind of a left field decision. And they've killed it so far. 13-8 on the Lotus, 13-5 on the Icebox, and, you know, showing to Loud that, yeah, there is still plenty of talent in the Brazilian region. Maybe you bring in a guy like Verno to help round out the roster. But Aspas continuing to make teams that manage to deliver, so they become the first team from the Americas to qualify for Toronto. And this was a really cool moment as well here with Cortesia and Artzan talking about how challenging it's been to get to this moment, discussing their families, kind of what it means for them to, you know, to make it to this moment. And I thought the translation was really rather nice as well. So yeah, MIBR made it officially, and they were going to be joined by the winner of Sentinels and G2. Of course, the loser of that series played 100T. So, and 100T, well, they've been up and down. Now 100T is what they do, and they probably won't make it because they're 100T. That's what they do. But still, who knows? That's an interesting series. But G2 versus Sentinels on paper should be a banger series, but of course G2 have been the best team in the Americas so far this year, but Sentinels have been playing better and better as of late, and I think there was certainly a chance here for Sentinels to win it, and that in the end is exactly what they did. So this is a really cool, like, emotional moment here. You know, the family's getting involved in everything. I thought it was real nice, and like, they're going to be out there in Toronto, and hopefully they do well, because I think MIB are a nice team to, you know, support and see how they trend from here. But G2 versus Sentinels, banger game. And, I mean, honestly, all the maps were very interesting. Game 1, G2 dominated it. Sentinels bounced back on the game 2. And then the Ascent was pretty insane, right? Because, I mean, it was kind of the classic over here on Ascent. When you've got a team goes up big on the defensive side, they had an 11-2 lead, I believe. We'll see it in a second. G2 slowly bring it back. It looked like it was going to be a serious comeback, but in the end, it was the absolute classic that they brought it back all the way, and then Sentinels won the final couple of rounds and got over the line. Sassy, of course, now with MIBR, but he was still buzzing the fact that Sentinels here got the victory. And yeah, what a result for Sentinels, right? Given where they have been. Look, Narrate didn't have the best series, but Bang really lately has turned up when it matters, right? I was such a huge fan of Bang when he was first kind of talked about in the scene as a potential option. He was good on 100T, but he's been even better as of late here on Sentinels. And the splits, they lost 13-5, which is pretty rare for Sentinels to lose a split like this, but they bounced back and won the Icebox 13-11. And then the Ascent, they ran away with their defensive side. They went up 11-2 at this point. And then G2 brought it all the way back before the biggest fake comeback of all time, and Sentinels got over the line. So amazing result. That puts them to Toronto. Obviously, the boys have been working so hard, and to beat G2 to get there is so impressive. G2 still played a real good series, and like I don't think they'll have too many concerns about beating 100T and still making it to Toronto anyway. But Sen, there was lots of criticism around this team. There was lots of talk about, well, Redux is there now potentially. If Zelsis doesn't play so well, what does that look like potentially if they don't qualify here for Masters Toronto? But they've done so at the first time of asking. And yeah, they've been under pressure, right? People have talked about it. Even Ben Affleck was saying, can they win without Tent and all this? But they made it to Bangkok, didn't have the tournament in Bangkok they wanted, but they qualified. And now they've made it to Masters Toronto. All you can do is qualify for the big tournament. And then you see what happens when you get there, right? You've got to give yourself a chance, because some teams, like Cloud9, for example, they never even are there to give themselves a chance to make a serious run. So Zekken was buzzing about the result. Of course, the entire team was super happy about it. Bang deserves lots of credit as well. And whatever happens to the rest of the Americas playoffs, they will be in Masters Toronto. That is guaranteed. And as Rob Moore says, I double-checked this with the accountant too, but if my math is correct, as I push post, the only team in the world who was at Masters Bangkok who has qualified for Toronto is Sentinels, rooting for DRX to join us tonight. And well, we'll see how that's going again in a second. I'll go back to it. You know, very tactically for Rob Moore putting the accountant to another tweet so they get more impressions for the Sentinels accountant to partnership. But like still, I thought I'd throw it in the video regardless. And yes, as it stands anyway, the teams that qualified for Masters Bangkok were these 8 teams. Edward Gaming have not yet qualified for, for Toronto. They may well do, but they were in Bangkok and they're not yet in Toronto confirmed yet. Vitality and Liquid, I mean, those are the European teams. Who knows what's going to happen in Europe, right? Because those playoffs are not yet underway. There's obviously some serious delays. G2 may well join Sentinels in Toronto as well, but of course, as of yet, that's not happening. T1 have an uphill battle against them. Trace Esports will not be there, that is guaranteed. And DRX may still be, but Gen.G weren't in Bangkok, for example, the other team that has qualified so far. So that's how things look right now. Just to quickly look back on that series that's currently ongoing, DRX versus RRQ. DRX look like they're going to get over the line here in the map 1, but very much interested your thoughts on all of this stuff in the comment section below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.